Hello, welcome to Casey Love Monsters. Today I'm going to take you through the process of making your own Scarecrow. Frankenstein. This is a great thing to make if you need a Halloween mask. Very comfortable to wear. So, there's a lot to cover. Let's get started. Alright, welcome to video on making your own custom Scarecrow mask. Today I'm going to show you how I do it, how I take you through the whole process of making your own original Scarecrow. And some of the materials that we'll be using today are, you'll need a chip brush, which you can buy cheap at like Home Depot, some masking tape, doesn't have to be this color. You'll need Prozade glue. This will be later on, we're not going to use this right now, but this will be for when you paint the mask. And you'll need some cheap paint from your local craft store. I like to use Delta Ceram Coat for the base coat color, which we will mix into the Prozade. But that's going to come later. So one of the first things I like to do is, once I have an idea of what mask I want to make, or how I want it to look, then I get a bust like this. Now you can purchase this very bust from Monster Makers. They sell this bust. It's meant for sculpting masks in clay and then making a mold and all that. But they're not cheap because they're really good quality. So you can spend the money and get a bust like this, which will last you a long time for making stuff like this, or get into making masks. If you're going to get into making masks, you might want to buy a bust like this. Otherwise, you could just use a styrofoam head form for what we're going to do and put it on a pipe and pull into like a piece of wood, which I'll show you. Use something like this with a pipe flange screwed into a piece of plywood and a metal pole, and then a wig form has a hole on the underside of it, so you can just put the wig form on this and that'll act as your form. But what I like about these busts is that you have all this surface to also work with. There you go. And that's pretty much all you need. Other than that, you're going to need some liquid latex, or in our purposes, we're going to be using Monster Maker's RD407 slip casting latex. And then you're going to need some cheap fleece or flannel from a craft store or local store that sells it. Michael's, Joann's Fabrics. I just buy black, basically black flannel or fleece, and then you'll need some burlap, which you can also buy from Joann's or Michael's. They sell untreated burlap. So that's it. The materials are fairly cheap for this project. So the first thing I'm going to do is take some crumpled paper like this. This is just packing paper. You can use newspaper if you like, whatever. And all I'm going to do is what I want to do is start shaping this head differently and bring it away from being so human. It's also nice to have a Lazy Susan like this, one of these boards. You don't need one this big, this is pretty large, but it's nice to have one so you can spin the piece around as you're working on it. Now, it's going to look a little goofy at first, but what we want is just to kind of shape this head out a little bit. So if you wanted to do, a different shape, you weren't going to do a Frankenstein type character, you could do whatever you want. You could do, I've done cone-headed scarecrows, I've done, sometimes just add a little stuffing just to slightly change the shape of the head a little bit away from being so human. Or I ran out of masking tape, so I'm just going to use some regular tape here. And I'm going to do is fill in small areas that need a little more filling. The idea is not to be perfect, just haphazard. It always looks more creepy and interesting, I think. So there he's all taped up. Got our Frankenstein looking head here. Alright, so next step, we're going to take some cling wrap and just wrap this as tight as possible. What we want to do is protect the bust and everything underneath, and we want to keep the shape that we have there. Alright, so one of the things I've decided to do is also I want to give it a much wider profile, and I want to make the jaw stronger. Or larger. Let's say it that way. A little bit larger. I want to stuff it out a little bit. The Scarecrow masks don't really take the exact shape of what you're doing anyway, so you can do weird shapes and forms and it'll kind of read through, but not like perfectly, so it works well. So I'm going to kind of give him a larger weird jaw shape, and for that matter I'm also going to maybe just stuff the face out a touch. Let's kind of wrap this around this way, I think. And then I can grab this, wrap it around this way. So I'm going to stuff this jaw out a little bit more with just some paper, because I did like the look that it had, and that jaw was kind of sticking out. Asymmetrically. It's weird, like you can kind of already see, and it's funny that it has that indent because it's already kind of Frankenstein-ish. That's cool. So now we've got a little more profile, interesting shape going on. You can just take an old t-shirt if you want, and I'll just lay it on, and I'll put the top of the t-shirt at the top of the head here, where your neck would go through, because we can just easily cover that with burlap and everything. And I'll just kind of like look at the shape, here. Like what's interesting is I can use these sleeves to do these weird, bolts, like organic burlappy bolts right here, which will be cool. And then I can use the rest of this to shape out the face a bit. I would recommend not getting super thick flannel or fleece. Get thin stuff that easily takes the shapes. T-shirts have that perfect, kind of perfect weight to it. This is an old Halloween 3 shirt. Okay, so I think these will end up, I'll just tie these off, and these will end up being our I'll just make these weird burlap bolts. I can even cut these or whatever if they stick out too far. I can push them in. But what you're looking for is something that takes the shapes nicely. You know, we'll tie this off and kind of bunch this naturally to give it that cool roped up scarecrow kind of look in the neck, you know, the wrinkles. Tie this together a couple times. Alright, so I've got it kind of bunched up down the road. I just need to tie it together. I'm not going to worry about asymmetry too much on this kind of thing. I'm going to keep it asymmetrical. All right, that'll be good enough. Probably stretch those and bring those down a bit. Here's our Pippi Longstocking Frankenstein. That's kind of what it looks like right now. I have to work these a bit. Who knows, I might even tweak those down the road. Alright, so, because it looks a little silly at first, a little weird. Get those to stay down here. So the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just cut out a piece of this fleece here anyway, just to cover up the top so that when whoever's wearing the mask, it'll be nice and comfortable, because this will be what you feel on the inside of the mask. So you do want it to be comfortable to wear. The next step is you're going to take, this is liquid casting latex. They call it slip cast latex. Again, it's RD407 from Monster Makers. I recommend that you use this latex or a slip casting latex like this. I like this one a lot because this latex, when it dries, is extremely rubbery, and very strong and durable, and it'll last years. When you make a mask like this, it's going to last a long time. It's not just going to fall apart. So we'll take a chip brush. I got a little bit bigger one here just because we have such a broad surface. You can get larger chip brushes if you'd like. And what I start to do is literally just brush this on like this. I'll put a little bit underneath here just to secure that down. And it is a messy process. Don't get it on your clothes. It will not come out. Now, typically these masks will take a few days to dry completely because you're going to be putting so many layers of latex on. Because after this, then we start adding the burlap layers, and all that latex needs to dry, and so it takes a few days. So be patient. You know, you let it take a few days to totally dry. You can stick it out in the sun if you like. That'll dry it faster. You know, hair dryer will dry it faster as well. But give it time to dry all the way before you start painting. Now, make sure you get down into these folds. You just want to get rubber everywhere. It may not seem like that'll dry, but it will. But yeah, I was saying, you never know how these are going to turn out. They turn out different each time. All right, one other thing I'm doing is I've glued now kind of a piece on for the nose. And now I'm just kind of cutting out some basic eye holes. These are, you don't have to worry about these being perfect. In fact, the more uneven and perfect you do them, the better. One thing I recommend is they don't have to be exactly the distance of your eyes, but then if they're not, make sure there's enough hole that when you're wearing it, you have plenty of vision to see. Because if you make them far apart like that, obviously they're much further apart than human. It works, it's just you gotta make sure that they're big enough to see out of. Now, one thing is you're gonna end up kind of covering these over anyway with burlap that you can still see through, but gives you plenty to see through, but like it'll hide these big holes. I'm not just gonna leave these big holes here. Okay, so I'll take some latex again. Start with the mouth here. Brush some on. I'll brush some on this piece of burlap here. Then I'll fold it to make it a little thicker. A little bit of a thicker edge, and I'll brush over it again. Gives you a nice straight edge for the mouth. And then I'll just start brushing latex on this. I'm pushing the burlap down so it sits down. I will follow some of the shapes, and sometimes I'll change it up or enhance them with the burlap once I get it sitting. But I like to do the burlap piece by piece. I don't like to just take a big piece of burlap over the whole top and brush it on, because you just don't get as much organic of an organic look that way. I don't know, it just doesn't look as cool, not to me anyway. Alright, so putting some more on here, and brush some on this nose again, and then we'll lay a piece of burlap onto that nose and then shape it. So it kind of has a skeletal nose. I'm not going to worry about burlap overlapping. I just go for it, basically. That's all you got to do, is just don't worry. You just do it. Like right here, I'm not going to pull that back out of the eye. Although we're going to kind of haphazardly cover some of the eye holes in a sec here. I'll show you how I do that. Okay, so what I'll sometimes do is pull on the burlap, and you can open up like a weird organic hole, you know. You can kind of tweak it, pull it, string it out, and then I'll sort of lay it on and find what looks cool. weird, you know, somehow. And I'll just lay that on like that and brush around. I like how this looks like a kind of baggy eye right here. You know, and I'll kind of put some latex on, but not all of it. I'll let some of that just be burlap. And this is like, it's so organic. This is how you start to kind of see different things happening. So let's do the other eye, and maybe not as extreme of a hole, keeping it like a little bit less, maybe drooped more, like that. You can also see I can pinch this nose now. I pinched it in a little bit. Now, for some of these things like this bolt, and by the way, I put a chunk of burlap under here, which is now holding that bolt up straight. But for something like that, you know, the bolt thing, what I'll do is put a piece of burlap on. I'll stretch out like kind of a hole and pull on it like this. And it kind of pulls it to a point. And I'll wrap the rest of this burlap around it. You know, pull these strings out so that they're kind of coming to like a bit of a point. Yeah, it's not going to look like exactly the Frankenstein bolts, but it's going to suggest it. Just in like a weird Scarecrow way. And for, you know, the side of the head, start going into these more broad areas. I'll just take strips, sometimes make holes in them like that. So I won't think about it too much. Try not to get too designy with it. I just go for it. I'll leave areas like that open where you see the shirt material with just latex underneath. It's kind of cool. When you paint it, you can get kind of a different look right in those areas, a deeper. You can make them look kind of holy and weird, so I'll tend to leave stuff like that from time to time. Another cool thing you can do is take some strands like this and brush latex through and make kind of a rope, a latex burlap rope. And you know, you can start to suggest maybe some stitching, or not so much stitching, but scarring here, or veins or whatever. You can lay these down. It's pretty cool. You can get like this really organic feel. It's already starting to come together. A monster. We still got a long way to go though. Okay, we've done a piece over the front of the mouth here, going into the nose and under the eyes. Piece over here. You know, it's just opening up some stuff there, more holes. Maybe we'll do stretchy, what look like wrinkles or tendons or something. Then I'll tend to, you know, brush some latex on again, because the latex you brushed on earlier is probably pretty dry or dried out already, so put a little more on. Helps bind it and stick it together. It's kind of cool. We get some more play over the eyes or something there. I'll just start tacking it down. Really no magic to this. Just kind of see what looks good to you and do it. Alright, so I did add some sort of brows just to try it out. See how it looks. Looking pretty cool. get it to sit down. If you're having any issues with it sitting, that tapping tends to help. Just gonna clean up a little bit. All right, kind of getting there. So I'm gonna take another strand, kind of build up this scar here. The cool thing about burlap, you can just now one thing to know about burlap that I just found out recently, I didn't know, some people are allergic to it, so make sure you're not allergic to burlap before you start working with it. Don't have these fibers sticking out. Kind of skull-like nose. That's another cool thing. You just kind of stick pieces on, and they'll stay in place. All right, I've decided to do some heavier brows over top of the eyelids. So the way I'm doing it is just taking a strip of with latex in it like this, and just like kind of folding it like a burrito. Probably don't need it as long as that. You just kind of make like a burrito, mini burrito, filled with latex in it, and then just lay it on into place. A little more latex just to bind it better. Same thing, just a little burrito with a smaller piece. Fold the edges flat so you have like a nice clamp. You can even work the edges with your fingers. It'll give you what looks like a clamp on there. Alright, now we're putting a chest piece on the chest. Now, leave it kind of scraggly for the most part. I'll really punch it in. Try and get some of the shape of those underneath wrinkles. If you want to do, you know, some tendons or something like in the neck, you can just take some of these little guys and just stretch it out. Now, the last thing I kind of want to do before, and I won't cut the mouth open and give it its final shape until the latex is dry, totally dry. But what I want to start doing is adding hair. So I'm going to take strands of burlap and just lay them straight, coming from the center out, just like Frankenstein hair. All right, so I pulled a bunch of strands of burlap out for hair. Just gonna kind of take a big strand, cut it in half. I've put a little bit of latex up here. And just take and lay that in there. And just keep working in a circle. And then eventually, the right look. You want to glue down the hair quite a bit where it meets, so it's going to stay. I mean, once this dries, it's not going anywhere. All right, so here we are back with our Frankenstein creature, pretty much all finished for the most part. I'm gonna cut the hair and then maybe put a little bit of latex in it, not fully drench it in latex, but just a little bit to make it look more wet and stringy, because when it's dry like this, it's a bit, I want this to lay down up here as well, so I'll probably get it to do that, which will give it more, and I may add more hair or whatever, I'm not sure yet, but we want it to probably lay more like this. So I'll kind of slightly style it, but not to the point where it looks styled, but like more organic, and I want it to be stringy. All right, so here we are. Next day, mask is totally dry, and we're gonna start painting it here. It's like, yeah, pulled the hair up just to keep it out of the way. All right, so I've removed the mask from the stand, and I've bunched the hair up just with a piece of rope. To remove the mask, I've cut up the back, kind of jagged. I might do some sort of shoelace or piece of rope like this, but like in a shoelace type thing, so you can kind of close this up later, or a rope around his neck just to close this up. But this will make it easy for you to get in and out of the mask. And then what I've done is marked kind of how I want the mouth roughly to be. And then I'm going to use some scissors to start cutting that mouth and shaping the mouth and opening it up. All right, so done a couple things off camera just because it's going to take a lot of time to do. One is cut the mouth open. So what I did is I used a Sharpie to kind of mark, how I wanted the teeth and mouth to look. And then to cut it, I had to use these to poke, these really sharp shears, small shears to poke a hole, get it started. And then I had to switch to actually something super heavy duty, which is these plastic cutters here. These are used for cutting sprues off plastic model kits, because the latex is so incredibly thick. Regular scissors like this aren't going to cut through it. Once you get the mouth open, you can kind of use larger scissors like this to cut a few things, but I really shaped all the teeth and everything using this tool here. All right, so for the base coat, I'm going to get a cup like this. Actually, a little smaller. Don't probably need that much. Maybe a smaller cup like this. And I usually start with Prozade. This is going to be our glue that kind of stays nice and flexible and rubbery. Because you don't want just to paint with acrylics or whatever, it'll be stiff and crack, so you want something that has some flex to it. So typically I'll take some Prozade like so. This stuff's really sticky, which is good too. Then I'm using some Ceram coat. I'm gonna start with Actually, let me start with this more minty green here. I really don't want that much green. I want it to be pretty light toned. And then I'll mix this together. All right, grabbed a little bit of yellow. Put a little yellow into this. And put a little bit of yellow and brown just to bring more of an earthy tone to the whole thing. Brown I'm going to be real subtle and careful with. And just mix little bits at a time. I don't want this to go too olive green. You know, too quickly. Okay, so here we go. I'm gonna take a chip brush like this. And I'm gonna start base coating this. Now I'm not looking to cover every single speck of this. I want some of the burlap to show through. Some of that brown burlap can show through. That's going to be fine. And the reason I'm going to go with a little bit brighter color of the green as well is because I already know that I'm going to put a wash stain into this thing, which is going to change the green a lot. It's going to dull it way down. Bring this thing to life. It's alive. Who knew? Scarecrow, Frankenstein mix up? Who knew? Alrighty. There we go. It is all base coated. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to let this dry. Now, if you want to speed up the drying, you can just use a hair dryer. All right, so one of the paints I like to use on these masks, once I've got the base coat done, is these little shades by Citadel. This is a basically super thin washy paint, and I really like how it settles into everything. So bring back some of the brown tones a little bit. Do it that way as well. Now some of the paint I'm going to want to take off, some of the wash. So take some water, kind of on a damp paper towel, just spray some water and wipe it back off a little bit. And that just takes some of the stain off the high points, brings back some of the green. So we're kind of just staining this into all the crevices. You can also just dab it off like that. All right, so we're done with our stain, and this is how he's looking. So that's why I kind of go a little brighter with the green in the beginning, because it gets toned down quite a bit. All right, so we're going to move on to the next step here. I'm going to take some FW acrylic ink black, and I've got my air compressor on, which you're going to hear running in the background quite frequently. I thinned the black paint in a little mixing cup. I like to use these clear cups. You can purchase these from, they're just little ketchup cups. You can purchase them from a lot of stores like Smart and Final. We use a little bit of water first. We put the paint in the cup, a little bit of water, just a few squirts, thin it down, and then a few squirts of 91% alcohol, which you can buy 91% alcohol from any CVS. So I'm going to use just light shading. I don't want to get too much of an airbrush look on this mask, so you know, a lot of it's not going to be a whole lot of airbrushing, just some shading. And you probably can't really see too much of what's going on, but you should see those areas get a little bit darker. I'm using a double action airbrush here. In case you're wondering, this is a Badger Velocity gun, really nice gun. Has a nice fine spray as well as thicker if you want. Even theatrically kind of darken the tip of this nose, make it real creepy. So this mask is, you know, really good for Halloween type stuff, you know, or if you're going to a party or something like that, and you want a mask that's like really breathable and like comfortable to wear, easy to take on and off. This is a great mask for that. Of course, you can make your own Frankenstein. You don't have to copy this exactly. You can kind of do your own style or base it on what I've done and kind of come up with your own version as well. Or just copy the one I did here. Either way, a lot of fun. Just doing this for the fun of it, just blackening the edges, you know, on the where it comes together back here, just to give it some nasty kind of rotted look. What would be his Franken bolts are now these sinewy, wispy pieces. Make them look like they got barbecued. Pretty good. All right, next step is we're going to take some Citadel wash shade, Drucci violet color, which is a very purpley tone, and just go around and, you know, you may not think a Scarecrow can have purple in it, but this is a very dark, deep, dense purple color, and actually does play off the black really well. So you have, and it's a very thin, you don't have to thin this at all, this stuff. It's ready to go out of the bottle, super thin, doesn't go on overly heavy, and it's just going to give a little bit of color to everything. So like wherever the black is ending, I'm going to pull purple coming out of that. Enhance my eyes a bit. All right, now we're going to switch we're done with the airbrushing. We're going to switch to just paintbrush work, and we're going to use kind of a ruddy brown tone here. We're going to use this kind of stainy orange, autopsy kind of red orange, and then we're going to use, let me wash this out, and we're going to also use this kind of icky kind of green. And what we're going to do with these three colors is just go around and enhance stuff. Now already I know, just kind of offhand, I want the bolts, these bolts in the mouth and stuff, kind of to be dripping with this kind of red, like rusted sort of thing. So I'm going to start by doing some of that. I might just pull my finger through that. When you do that, it knocks some of the paint off here and there and just really gives it this feeling like it rusted. You can take a bunch of paint on the brush and let it run down. That's the best thing, if it'll cooperate. I'm not going to do every notch here. I'm going to try to break it up a little bit, but come out of holes out of nowhere too, you know, just it's kind of cool and creepy. Maybe this one drips down the neck like it's been leaking for a while. Whatever's keeping this poor lad alive is also just oozing out of him. Maybe we'll switch up to a different orange tone for the rust and the bolts here, because I kind of want some rust there too, but I might switch to a different orange for that purpose, those purposes. Let's bring this one down too, just to kind of bring another one. Let's let that one kind of run. Another thing you can do is just hit it with water and let it kind of do its thing naturally. Sometimes, you know, I'll leave like these weird holes and things in the burlap on purpose, because I know I can work some gross fun stuff out of there, like this. Make it, there you go. All right, so now we're going to go into our green. Now I'm going to use a darker green than what I had before, just to kind of help give, you know, another tone of green to this guy. So it's not all the same green everywhere. So I'll just pick areas. Again, you just kind of go around and pick out areas that seem like the right thing, you know, to you. I mean, I just keep it very loose. You know, I might run some of this down those kind of dripping tear areas. I try not to think about it too much and just kind of go. And believe it or not, I mean, just these little hits of green, darker green here and there, tend to really help bring everything out. Even though it might not seem like it would, it actually really helps quite a bit. Seafoam kind of tones, antiquing cream. I've got a sponge, and I love this kind of sponge with all these little bristles. When I get sponges, I look for round ones with all these bristles like that. It's got a nice breakup. What you want to do is dampen the sponge. Not wet, shouldn't be soaking wet, just damp. I dampen a paper towel, and you can dip one side of the sponge in and then knock off some on the damp paper towel, and then kind of come in here. We're going to use two colors for this, so I'm going to try a little bit there. Now if you put it on and it's a little too heavy, you can take the cleaner damp side like this and just get it, kind of pick it back off. All right, looking pretty cool. All right, so now I'm going to come back with this terracotta orange and this antique gold. So I'll use this terracotta orange. And what I'm going to kind of do here is, I was talking earlier about possibly rusting some stuff out. And so I think what we'll do is give like some kind of rusty sort of vibe here. Just a different kind of orange. Now we'll take some of this yellow and let it also saturate in. And then a touch of that red just running through there a little bit. This is that first red we used. All right, now I'm taking a color called Nolan Oil, which is like a black, very dark black stain shade. And I'm hitting some of these stitches that are holding his mouth closed because they're getting a little lost. I could go lighter, but I'm gonna go darker with them. Some of these bolts make them look oily, dingy. Maybe some of that's running down. Just mix some of the FW black thinned out with some of the stain. All right, so I have some black stain here, and just gonna kind of take some of these hairs in my hand and stain them out. Thin it out a lot more. I think it's a little too saturated. All right, here we are with the finished product. The hair is kind of stringing together in clumps a little bit when it's, because it's wet. So I'm gonna end up hair drying it and styling it kind of back out so it's a little more poofy and not like strung together. But it kind of helps the hair look a little more full when it's dried out. So I'll end up having to dry it out and re-string it. It's all strung in clumps at this point, but I think it's got enough of the black look. I might add a little more, we'll see. All right. Thanks for watching. Have fun out there making your Scarecrow monsters. See ya.